Hello YouTube, I'm Michael Morgan. This is Retro Book Reviews. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Conscience of a Conservative by Barry Goldwater. Before I get into review, as always, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button on this video, share this video. If you have suggestions for books you'd like to see me review on here, drop a comment below, or you can always email the show at retrobookraviews@gmail.com. Okay, now it is a popular saying in today's world that elections have consequences. And perhaps one of the most consequential presidential elections in history was the 1964 race between the incumbent Democrat Lyndon Johnson and his Republican challenger, today's author, Barry Goldwater. And then here momentarily, I'll get into the reasons as to why that was such a consequential race. Just a little background on the book and Mr. Goldwater. The Conscience of a Conservative was first published in 1960, and the principles outlined in this book have served as the foundation of the modern conservative movement. And Mr. Goldwater himself, he was a Republican senator from the state of Arizona, which he served from 1953 to 1965, and then again from 1969 to his retirement in 1987. Now, in his book, Goldwater lays out the differences between a conservative and a liberal. Now, Goldwater wrote, the root difference between the conservatives and the liberals of today is that conservatives take account of the whole man, while the liberals tend to look at only the material side of man's nature. Now, Goldwater discusses that people not only have economic needs, but also have spiritual needs as well, which Goldwater referred to as the superior side of man's nature. And so Goldwater contrasts this conservative viewpoint with how a person is a whole person, while the liberal side, they think if they provide enough government benefits, if they provide you cradle to the grave government benefits, that then your life is just going to be hunky dory. Yeah, everything's going to be great. Of course, we know that's not the case. As people are complex and multifaceted. Now, one of the main points of Goldwater's conservatism is one of the core principles of it is about maximizing the freedom and liberty of the individual. Now, I agree with Mr. Goldwater on this point. It is not the place of the government to tell you how to live your life. We have these God-given, unalienable rights as outlined in the Declaration of Independence, that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I have been around. I've been around long enough. I've seen it in recent years, and I would argue recent decades, that it does not matter if the government in charge, if they have an R next to their name or if they have a D next to their name. If there's a chance they could increase the power of the government and squash the freedoms and the rights of the individuals, they will not hesitate to do so. So that is why it is important for us to stand up for our God-given rights. Because once the government begins to encroach upon those rights, once they begin to take away those rights, the government does not give that back. The government does not give back that power. It will be, and then next thing you know, you've woken up and you're living under tyranny. And throughout The Conscience of a Conservative, Goldwater this lays out solid conservative principles, such as warning against the corrupted nature of political power, and also makes a compelling case for states' rights, which are outlined in the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, which basically states, any responsibility of the federal government not outlined in the Constitution, those rights revert to the state. But also, we've seen that in recent years, is how the federal government continually encroaches upon the states when they give the states money. It comes with a lot of strings attached. Now the section Goldwater writes on civil rights, by many modern readers, would label this section problematic. That's because to give brief background, of course, the Conscience of a Conservative, as I said, was written in 1960. Goldwater did vote against the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And his reason behind it was, Goldwater makes the argument in the book that the protections as outlined by the 14th and 15th Amendments, plus the Civil Rights Act of 1866, that provided every individual with the civil rights on the federal level. And then, of course, at the time, this was the era of many southern states practiced segregation, and then you had starting with Eisenhower and later with Kennedy, you had the push to racially integrate schools, which Goldwater viewed that as as a state right, because there is no clause in the Constitution that gives the federal government authority over education, and since there is no clause for education, then of course Goldwater argued that right reverted to the states, and then he also saw it as an overreach of the Supreme Court with the Brown versus Board of Education decision in 1954. And so that particular section, maybe, as I said, that may be problematic, even controversial for some people today. But one point I wholeheartedly agree with Goldwater on is taxes. That I pay too much in taxes. You pay too much in taxes. Of course, depending on what state the state you live in, the income level you live in, 30 or the 50% of your paycheck is gone before you even get your hands on it. Although you're the one that worked that week, you're the one that worked the 2 weeks, however often you get paid. The government has gotten too big, and they continually take out too much taxes. And Goldwater saw high taxes as an encroachment of people's personal liberty and property. As Goldwater writes in the book, a government does not have an unlimited claim on the earnings of individuals. One of the foremost precepts of the natural law is man's right to the possession and the use of his property. And a man's earnings are his property as much as his land and the house in which he lives. So the money you make, that's yours. You're the one who went to work for it. That's not the government's. They get their grubby little fingers into your cookie jar. You're the one, you bought those cookies, put in the cookie jar. You went out and you busted your tail this week. And then also in the chapter on taxes, Goldwater lays out another core principle of conservatism: limited government. The question is, how much should the government be entitled to? Why should it be the government's prerogative to take care of people from cradle to the grave? With a limited scope of government, lower taxes, and controlled spending, the individual will not only have more money, but more freedom. Now, at this point, one might say, well, your conservatives don't care about poor people. No. I mean, this is another point that Goldwater explains very, very well in the book. Is that conservatives care about the plight of the poor. If you have any bit of a heart, whether you're conservative, liberal, libertarian, you should care about the less fortunate in society. But but Goldwater would argue that it's a better use of resources for people to make charitable contributions or to seek help from charitable sources, churches, food banks, various charities that are out there that could help more people and help them more efficiently than what the federal government can. But instead, there's there's these bloated tax bills, which this money is ultimately wasted by the federal government. And as I upload this video, the federal government is $33 trillion in debt. Trillion with a T and 12 zeros after that. In fact, Goldwater warned about the dangers of the welfare state. And Goldwater said, dismantle it. If we take from someone, and this is a quote, the personal responsibility for caring for his material needs, we take from him also the will and opportunity to be free. Now too, I'll just as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the most the 64 election between Goldwater and Johnson was very consequential because once Johnson was elected to his term in 1964, we did see the rise of the welfare state. You saw this increase in government social programs, as what Johnson labeled the Great Society, which is basically the belief that if everybody's dependent on the government for all your economic needs, life's going to be great. Yeah, but of course, what does that result in? That results in individuals having less money to do with as they see fit to enjoy their lives. It's less money for churches, and charities to help take care of people. That should not be, the complete responsibility of the federal government. And then, unfortunately, there are, if you receive those benefits, the government puts limitations on those benefits. For example, you have to qualify. You make this amount of money. You make $1 over that amount of money. The government can say, okay, you make too much money. You don't qualify for this benefit anymore. So one thing to keep in mind is that a government big enough to give you everything you want is also big enough to take it all away from you. As I have I have a personal story about that. In late 2015, I was laid off from a job that I had, and in the company that I worked for, they were not going to contest unemployment. And so since I didn't have another job lined up, I applied for the unemployment benefits as my employer, pays for through the state. Okay, well, I did my part. Weeks go by, in fact, 6 weeks go by before I received, my first unemployment check. All the time I was looking, I was looking diligently for a job. I was applying for job after job after job. And then once I started receiving the benefits, I received a notice from the unemployment office that I had to attend this class. And basically the class was ways to apply for a job, which I was already doing, which I knew how to do. But yet, my benefits would have been cut off if I didn't attend this. And so at the time, I'm still looking for a job. Didn't have a job lined up. I had to go. I had to go attend this class and take these various tests. Too, and that is something that you have to be mindful of. And I eventually did come to work a few months. They come into a job a few months later, and I didn't need those benefits anymore, which. It should be a temporary fix. It is, government benefits were never meant to be a lifestyle, and that is what Goldwater warns about with the welfare state, as we've seen the increase of the welfare state within the last over 60 years in this country. And then, of course, I've only hit some of the highlights of the Conscience of a Conservative. And I encourage you to read this for yourself. This is a book everybody should read. I mean, even if you fundamentally disagree with what's in this book and everything I've said on this video, I encourage you to challenge yourself, stretch yourself, You need to get out of the echo chamber. Uh, just for the very reason, you should always know, your opponent's viewpoint. It is, I've long been a believer in that. I've read books from people that I fundamentally disagree with that challenge what I believe to my core, and I encourage you to do the same thing. And also along with the increase of the welfare state, you had, the escalation of the Vietnam War that took place during Johnson's administration, which later went on, into the Nixon administration after that. But however, although Barry Goldwater lost the election, the principles outlined in his book were very influential, as 20 years later it brought about what is known as the Reagan Revolution, or when this conservative movement swept the country with the election of Ronald Reagan as president in 1980 and again in 1984. And for anyone today who considers themselves to be a Republican, I encourage you to read this book as well. I would encourage members of the Republican Party in Congress to read this book, because if Barry Goldwater was alive today, I don't know if he would be a Republican. I don't know if Ronald Reagan would be a Republican. He'd be more of a libertarian, because the Republicans had just become this controlled opposition party of spineless rhinos who, they campaign on conservative principles, but they spend money. They spend money just like the Democrats do. And so, I encourage you to. It's always important to think for yourself. Think for yourself. Challenge yourself. Challenge what you believe. Why do you believe it? And that's why it's important to get a copy of Conscience of a Conservative today. And I just want to thank you for your time today, and may God bless you.